After interviewing a surplus of candidates, it seems the Jets general manager search will be coming to an end soon, as ESPN's Rich Cimini said he expects the team to narrow down the list of candidates to 2 or 3 by this weekend and officially make a hire mid to late this week. A lot to get into, and we'll break it down all here and much more coming up on a Saturday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, joined by content creator Matt O'Leary.
J-E-T-S, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer, and Jets legend, Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Hello everyone, and welcome into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Saturday, January 18th. A huge slate of NFL games coming up, divisional weekend. It was, there weren't that many entertaining games last weekend. I think that's pretty much safe to say. A lot of blowouts, but hopefully we get some entertaining games today. And tomorrow, obviously. I think tomorrow has the potential to be the Sunday of the year with the Ravens and the Bills kicking off in Orchard Park. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel on your way in. Don't forget about our membership raffle. Every membership you gift gets you a ticket into our raffle. We'll throw the ticker up down below. See our leaderboard. Prizes we're raffling off this month include a signed Garrett Wilson mini helmet, a signed Wayne Corbett football, a free item from our merch store, and a free channel emoji, so be sure to get on that if you haven't already. Before the show, there were several memberships gifted, so we'll say thank you to these guys. Chris J comes in with 4 gifted memberships. Chris, thanks so much if you hear your name called. Thank Chris, Benny Bronx, Bilk Jaziz, Nestor Bowden, Bobby Cruz, thank Chris in the chat. Chris, absolute legend. Appreciate you tuning in. And our guy Alan comes in with the 5 spot. Gary King, Chris Siegler, Pat Rudy, Herman Lee, Anthony Cook. All thank Alan. Alan, appreciate the support. Stuck with me for a long time. Your support means the world, but let's bring on our guest for today's show, fellow Jets content creator and absolute legend. We did weekly pregame shows together, and the first time having him on this offseason, Mr. Matt O'Leary, joining us on the program. Matt, another day. No head coach, no GM in the building. We were just talking before the show. They'll interview everyone with a clipboard except Super Bowl winners. So,
yeah, it is a ever-growing list. I think it's 32 names that they have either interviewed or plan to interview for both positions. And we'll see when it finally gets narrowed down, hopefully soon, like you were saying at the top.
Absolutely. Rich Cimini of ESPN does expect the Jets to narrow it down to 2 to 3 candidates, which could be very exciting. But before we go any further, our guy Rick Kent comes in with 10 gifted memberships on the show. He gets a Jets chat. Jets. There we go, Rick. Thank you so much for the 10 gifted memberships. And it looks like he broke YouTube because only 3 memberships were gifted. I know this has happened on some other shows. Don't worry. I'm sure the memberships will get uploaded. It looks like we maxed out, but I'm sure they'll come through in the coming days. It's happened to us before. So only 3 names to read. Dark Stevo, Fooly, McGooley, ENT, Anthony Gaming Boy. You are all members. Thank our guy Rick Ken in the chat. Rick, 10 gifted memberships means the world. I appreciate your support on the program. So Matt, you just got to hope that there's something that happens. Again, we were saying, I personally would rather talk about head coaches right now than draft prospects, but I want this search at some point to come to an end. So I'm hoping, you narrow it down to a few candidates this week. Candidates are pretty much at the top of my list include Thomas Dimitroff, Brian Gain, Mike Greenberg, John Eric Sullivan, who seems to be a front runner for the job. I know Mike Borgonzi was very, very high on your list, but he was hired in Tennessee. How does this really affect your radar, kind of, so to speak, on this search?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie, he was my favorite target just because I thought what he was able to do in Kansas City and the resume that he has is pretty impressive, and Tennessee did a good job to get that done pretty quickly. They fired their GM 2 weeks ago, did their interviews, got a second interview with him, and then hired him. But at the same time, there are still other good candidates on the board. You just listed off a bunch of them. And there's still an opportunity here for the New York Jets to get a desirable one. They just got to make this decision soon. In my opinion, at least, I would like a general manager in place before we get down to the Senior Bowl and other things in the offseason that are coming up sooner rather than later.
That's what I was saying. I had a show last night, Justin Free to the Jet Press. It was actually 2 hours long. It was it was a crazy long show, and I was saying I want a GM in here before the Senior Bowl because before we know it, the pre-draft process is going to start to ramp up. I want someone in here to prep early for free agency. Who knows? Maybe Phil Savage, Matt, somehow retains the job. He was down at the Hewlett Bowl with Connie Carberg, so you never know what's what this team could do. We've seen crazier things. You mentioned the trying to find a desirable candidate. There are a lot of questions surrounding, well, is this job desirable or not? Well, NFL insider Jordan Schultz still thinks it is a very desirable job. Take a listen, appearing on The Herd with our guy Colin Coward. Let's see what Schultz had to. Matt, a lot to unpack there from Schultz's comments. First, I guess I'm going to start with what he said kind of about how desirable this job is. Were you surprised with any of his remarks? There are obviously a lot of hit pieces from The Athletic detailing how much Woody Johnson has kind of meddled this season. I think that's something to keep in. I think that's something the candidates have been keeping in mind as they go through this interview process, asking Johnson, Spielman, Tannenbaum these questions. Hey, I'll take the job. This is what the elite candidates I'm assuming are saying. But I need you to stay out of my way. I need full autonomy over this organization. Were you surprised with anything Schultz said there about this being an appealing position?
Both yes and no. So
Okay.
for the reason no that you just listed out, excuse me, I guess the reason yes, because of what you just listed out for why I was surprised, was because Woody Johnson has, had tendencies to meddle, and they're very well documented. But something that is a positive that Schultz pointed out was that they all pretty much get time under Woody Johnson. The only one who didn't was Idzik, who only had 2 years. Everyone else got 5+ years as a run at general manager. So whoever is coming in here is going to get a long leash and going to have the opportunity to build things how they see it. The thing that I've just been saying this whole time is I think you need, and it seems obvious, but it's not always the case, you need to find a GM and a head coach who are on the same page with how they view the roster and certain things that they want to do. For example, he mentioned it, Aaron Rodgers, which is a very important piece to the offseason.
You mentioned Aaron Rodgers there. I mean, I like I said, I had a 2-hour show last night with Justin Fried. A lot of call-ins surrounding. I think we had our guy Neil on the screen, who's a big Aaron Rodgers guy. I think his call-in was about 30 minutes long, detailing every reason why he wants Rodgers back. And I dug into his contract, and some of his even if you restructure his deal, the per trade signing bonus can't even go away. There are some bonuses you're going to have to pay Aaron Rodgers no matter what, even if you restructure his deal. I know you've been pretty vocal on him retiring. I do not want him back under any circumstance. Let's say Rodgers decides he's not going to call it quits. He's going to come back. He wants to play for this team on a restructured deal. What is your answer there?
So that's definitely part of it, right? He has to restructure the deal, and we got to be sure that he's willing to learn the new offense and going to let whoever the offensive coordinator is call the plays. I don't want to go through another year where it's, Aaron Rodgers throwing 20 times a game to Devontae Adams and, changing plays at the line of scrimmage. I think the Jets tried that, and clearly it did not work this past year. If he's willing to learn the new offense and, willing to kind of let the GM and coach, build the vision as they see it, and he's just a part of it, then I think it makes it a little bit more of a conversation. I don't know if he's going to be willing to do all those things. It'd be a pretty drastic change outside of the pay cut. He's done that one already, but it feels like he's been pretty adamant about the kind of offense that he wants to run. So I still think it's more likely than not that he is not here next year.
Now, what do you think there are any certain head coaches or GMs that would particularly want him back next season? I know Mike Vrabel was pretty vocal on saying he would want Aaron Rodgers back. That was, pretty much assumed, but obviously he's in New England, and Aaron Glenn and Brian Flores, two front runners for this position. Do you see in any world where a head coach, a new regime would want Rodgers back?
I mean, it's certainly possible. There's no way to really get in their head, I feel like, unless, we had that Rex Ryan come out and say at first, yes, and then it kind of walked it back a little bit later on. I think the assumption was that if Vrabel was the hire, or at least, the fan base kind of felt like they would keep Aaron Rodgers if that was the case and do it, run it back another time. To me, I just don't think we have enough info to say one way or the other if someone, the rest of the candidates are going to want to keep Aaron Rodgers or not.
Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Follow Matt on all social media platforms at Matt O'Leary NY. Every membership you gift gives you a raffle ticket and 5 gifted memberships from Jimmy Jets. Jimmy, that's 5 more raffle tickets for you. I really appreciate all your support. And YouTube is broken. We've broken YouTube, so no names to read. But Jimmy, I really appreciate the memberships and I appreciate all of your support here on the program. Matt, we were talking about this is basically the everlasting head coach and GM search. Is the 33rd team being paid per interview? Are there some sort of promises made there with some agents? Well, appearing on ESPN New York, ESPN's Rich Samini said he expects the general manager search to come to an end shortly. Let's take a listen.
I think over the next 48 hours, the Jets are going to whittle this list down, this very long list of GM. I think it's up to 15 interviews. I think they'll whittle that down to a small number, maybe 2 or 3, and bring guys back for a second round of interviews, and then make a choice. So in theory, I think the Jets could have a GM hired in the coming days, like early in the week, maybe middle of the week. And so I think that's been their plan all along.
Some really interesting comments there, Matt, made by Rich Samini. Who do you expect those 2 to 3 candidates to be as the Jets kind of, whittle down this list, as Samini noted?
Yeah, for me, I think Thomas Dimitrov is in play. I think Greenberg's in play, and I think Eric Sullivan are my guesses of who the 3 names would be at the general manager spot. I also like Chris Spielman from Detroit. I think he did a good job of, helping that organization turn it around. But maybe they don't view him as a true GM candidate, as he was more of an advisor there. But if I had to guess, again, it's super early in this, and none of their preferences have been really leaked out. Those would be my guesses of who the 2 to 3 guys are, though.
Dimitrov's really interesting. I think he's clearly the most seasoned candidate on this list. Falcons general manager from 2006 to 2020, drafted 11 Pro Bowlers, got the quarterback position right, drafted Matt Ryan, drafted Julio Jones, above 500 record, brought a team to the Super Bowl. My concern with him and the Jets, having interest in him, is he was interviewed over a month ago, and the Jets have spoken to so many GM candidates since then. Do you think there's any chance the Jets kind of potentially forgot about Dimitrov? Do you think that gives them a better chance of landing a second interview to say, okay, we spoke to all these guys. You were one of the first candidates we interviewed. Let's see where you stand right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to think that because he was the first guy that they talked to. I wonder if they kind of just wanted to get through everyone's first interview, discuss then who they want to bring back for a second one. And maybe that's the reason for the delay. And maybe they didn't want to mess up the timeline of bringing him back for a second one before they talk to everybody. So that'd be my only reasoning behind why they haven't talked to him again. But like Samini is saying, hopefully in the next coming days, we'll see how this list gets shortened, and it's time. It's been a very long search. I think 15 names is a wide enough net, and now just pick out, the handful of your favorites.
Matt, you mentioned Chris Spielman there. He's really interesting. A lot of people are fascinated with him. I'm not personally too intrigued. I know a lot of people are big on him after they requested to speak with him. I mean, he's never held a front office job before. His entire career, he's been a personal assistant to the owner. Is your fascination with him kind of because he gets credit for bringing Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell in?
Yeah, for sure. He was a big part of both of those hires. And I think it's a reasonable concern that you bring up. And if someone doesn't want Spielman for that reason, I think it's totally valid. The thing that just stands out to me is, you look at the Lions and how bad they were for so long, and he was able to find the right people and put them in place. I just think he would do a good job of, hiring a staff and help turn a team around. He's done it once already, and I think the Jets could very clearly use that kind of a turnaround. So that's why I'm optimistic about him.
Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Submit all your questions in the chat for Matt and I to get to. Start things off here with our guy Alan. Is if JES, Eric Sullivan, is really the target, what connection does he have with 1, Aaron Glenn, 2, McCown, 3, Flores, parentheses, please God, no. Or is Jeff Hafley a sneaky under-the-radar candidate? Now, Matt, all of his experience as an executive comes with the Packers. So the 2 possible candidates he has connections to are Hafley. He's in his first season. Jets interviewed him. He's in his first season in Green Bay as their defensive coordinator. And Mike McCarthy, who's won a Super Bowl, is available, but the Jets still are, for some reason, not interested in Super Bowl winning coaches, but they're interested in coaches who went 2-26 over 3 years and choked out an assistant at the college level. So some interesting stuff happening over at One Jets Drive. I think if they bring in Eric Sullivan, Hafley could be a sneaky under the radar candidate here.
Yeah, maybe he would be an under the radar candidate. I also don't think you necessarily have to find the connection, right? Like it's easy to go, okay, this is a guy from the Packers. He's going to hire someone from the Packers, or like the Ryan Grigson and Brian Flores pairing, or, Spielman with Detroit and Glenn from Detroit, or any of the other guys in the front office with Detroit. But there's not always that direct correlation. Maybe someone, whoever they hire as the GM, maybe just likes how someone interviews. For instance, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas's paths crossed before he was hired. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be who did you work with in the past, but I think that certainly helps. As we know, this league is a very relationships-based hiring process.
What are your overall thoughts on John Eric Sullivan, Matt? We didn't necessarily go in depth there. You just mentioned him as a candidate you expect to be a front runner. All of his experience as an executive comes with the Packers. He kickstarted his career as an executive 2004, Central Plains regional scout, working his way all the way up. Now he's the vice president of player personnel. He's been in that role since 2022. Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated noted he was the first scout to put Jordan Love on Brian Gutekunst's radar, which I think is a huge plus on his resume. Breer also said that he played a huge role in the search that landed Matt LaFleur as their head coach, and he's been involved in the salary cap. So while he's, more of a talent evaluator, he's kind of versatile as an executive. You give me John Eric Sullivan with a Brian Flores or an Aaron Glenn, I wouldn't absolutely hate it. Not with Jeff Hafley, though, per se.
Yeah, Hafley doesn't really do it for me. That hire would not move me very much, but I think, you kind of just mentioned it there. He has the scouting background, and then also since 2018, he was the co-director of player personnel and then the VP of player personnel since 22. So he's done a mix of both the college and the NFL side. So I think his versatility is really what excites me the most.
Alan comes back in and says, hey, Connor and Matt, like the GM candidates, the head coach candidates are very underwhelming. I think it's Glenn's job to lose. And Matt, can Lou get fired before the deadline? Start with the Aaron Glenn news there. I think him and Brian Flores are pretty much the front runners. Brian Costello of the New York Post reported that this is Glenn's dream job, and he would do anything to get this job. Rich Cimini reported something similar earlier on in the month. I think ultimately Glenn lands this job, and I think the GM is – I thought it was going to be Mike Borgonzi. Now I think it's going to be a John Eric Sullivan or a Mike Greenberg with a seasoned staff around Glenn. How would you feel about that hire?
I would like it. He's one of my top 3 remaining candidates for the position. I'm not going to lie. Mike Vrabel was my number 1 choice. Yep. He ends up in New England, but I would be, I think, the most excited about Glenn, Flores, and Joe Brady. But I think Glenn and Flores are a tier above for me, and I would be about it. I think he's, proven that he's ready to take that next step in his coaching career. I'm hoping that he doesn't make the same mistakes that Robert Saleh did, where he focused way too much on the defensive side. We had the quote from earlier this week at the press conference where he said he would spend equal time with the defense and the offense. I hope that's something that he would stick to if he did get this job. But I do think Glenn is the favorite from the Jet side, and also, his side too. Like, he's made it pretty well known that he really wants this job.
Now, Matt, again, we were speaking before the show. Brian Gaine was a name I mentioned as a potential combo. They were both on the team for the 1999 season. Both have deep connections with Bill Parcells. Gaine only spent 1 season as a general manager. It was with the Texans in 2018 before losing a power struggle to head coach Bill O'Brien. They won 11-5 that year. I thought it was a really solid season. Then he ultimately returned to the Bills, and now he's been their assistant GM under general manager Brandon Beane. Thoughts on Brian Gaine as a candidate? He obviously has that history with the organization, which we know could play an important role here.
Yeah, he doesn't have a huge sample size at GM, right? Only that 1 year, so only 1 draft class to look at. And I just thought how he exited Houston was abrupt. So it's kind of hard to get a read on how he would be as a general manager, but I think he's a legitimate candidate. And, we talked about connections before. That's 2 guys who played for the same team. So an obvious connection there. And if those are the 2 guys, that they wanted for the GM and the head coaching spot, I think it makes a lot of sense.
For sure. I think it's very important that, I think it's very important that both of them have worked with Bill Parcells. And I think that's going to be a huge plus for when a lot of fans look at them. Because, Bill Parcells was the first person who came in the 90s and completely revived this organization, obviously helping bring them to the 1998 AFC Championship, Vinny and all that. So I think there's a lot to like that they both have a special connection with Bill Parcells. Let's see. Zachary Berner comes in and says, JES and Alec Hallaby need to be on the final list. Matt, we haven't really gotten into Alec Hallaby, analytical wizard, basically worked his way up. He's a pretty fascinating story with the Eagles. He's been with them for 18 years, working his way all the way up from an intern. Now he's Howie Roseman's right-hand man. He's been in that role since 2022. I think you pair him with a Joe Brady. I think that regime has the potential to be have some of the highest upside in the league, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's a big swing.
Yeah.
But I like the approach that he's taken with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I know some fans would be scared off because they just went to the Eagles with Joe Douglas, but very different career paths, I would say, for those two guys. So Hallaby would be an exciting hire, and someone, like we said there, who would be a big swing, but I think they would have a lot of potential, especially paired with an offensive mind like Joe Brady.
You mentioned big swing there a few times. Are you for taking a big swing here? Are you, kind of prioritizing experience and going the more safe route, even with a Mike Vrabel off the table officially?
I like experience personally. It feels a little bit safer to me, but I wouldn't be mad at the Jets for trying to do something aggressive, especially if it's with a guy like Hallaby, who I think is he has the upside where it's a swing that makes sense. And Joe Brady, kind of the same thing. I really like his work with Buffalo. I get it. He has Josh Allen, but I think his scheme works really well there. And we've seen the difference in the offense since he took over when, he took over, who was it, Ken Dorsey last year?
Yes, as the interim OC.
Right. So I think he's done a good job. And even going back to his days at LSU and even Carolina, I thought he did some things well. I know the staff didn't last long, and Sam Darnold obviously didn't last very long there, but I thought he did some intriguing things. So of the offensive candidates, I think he's my favorite offensive head coach available.
Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. 78 of you guys watching on YouTube. Only 29 likes. Math is not mathing. Smash the like button. It is completely free. We're going to wrap up here shortly with Matt. Last chance to get on our membership raffle. Every membership you gift gets you a ticket into our raffle. Matt, I think we pretty much hit on everything here today. 25-minute show. No head coach, no GM. I appreciate you hopping on. You got any final thoughts?
Yeah, like we've been saying here, hopefully we get some news soon. It's been fun to bat around these candidates, but I'm ready to do a deep dive on some of the finalists.
Matt, appreciate you hopping on. Just let everyone know where they could find you if they haven't subbed already.
At Matt O'Leary NY on YouTube and social media. Come hang. It's a good time.
Ladies and gentlemen, Matt O'Leary checking in. Be sure to follow him. Great daily Jets content. I appreciate all of your support here on the show. I'm going to stay on here for a few more minutes, get to the rest of your questions. Take your calls if you want to call into the show. Click the pinned comment in the chat. Jets Worldwide, our guy Snowball wants in on the raffle. He became a member. We'll give him a Jets check. Jets. There we go. The man, the myth, the legend, Snowball joins Connor's A-team. Snowball, I appreciate your support, and I appreciate you tuning in here on the show. Guy Allen comes in and says, Joe Brady should sit out this coaching cycle, wait until 2026 when Zach Taylor gets canned so he can coach his buddy Burrow. If I'm Joe Brady, I think I stay in Buffalo. I'm with you here, Allen, for a season or two. I think he has a great situation with Josh Allen. And what other head coaching jobs are really appealing to him? I don't see him wanting to come here and take the Jets job where there's no quarterback for next season. This team has had no offensive stability whatsoever. Why would he want to come here and take this job? I don't know about the Raiders job. If I'm Brady, I'm staying in Buffalo for another year or two. Wild Wave comes in and says, what was Joe Brady's role on the Panthers? Wild Wave, I'm pretty sure he was their offensive coordinator. Let me just triple check here. Joe Brady. He was, yes, he was their offensive coordinator from 2020 to 2021. And then he was the Bills quarterback coach from 22 to 23, their interim offensive coordinator last year, obviously landing the full-time role this season. So if I had to make a prediction, him, Bobby Slowick, and Josh McCown probably have the highest upside among three head coach candidates this cycle, just because they're young, innovative offensive minds. But I think hiring those guys, they have such a high ceiling but such a low floor. So there's a big risk that you're going to take if you want to bring in one of those guys. See, Teresa Ice comes in and says, if not Borgonzi, then Greenberg for GM. Well, Teresa, I hate to break it to you. I don't think you saw the news, but Mike Borgonzi was hired by the Tennessee Titans yesterday to be their next general manager. So he's officially off the table for the Jets. Greenberg's really intriguing. He's a cap expert. He's been with the Buccaneers for a long time. He's their assistant GM under general manager Jason Licht. A lot to like about him. Grew up a Jet fan. Grew up on Long Island. He's on the younger side. He was a football administration intern in 2008 and 2009 under general manager, then now former general manager Mike Tannenbaum, but who's assisting with the Jets search right now. I think Greenberg will get a second interview, and I think he's going to be in the Jets' top 5 candidates. So, like I said, I think there's a lot to like in Greenberg, and I think he has a ton of upside. My concern, though, is he doesn't have a head coach that is going to want to come here. Liam Cohen refuses to interview for the job. There's no one in that organization or no one that he has strong ties to that has interviewed for the Jets position. So that's my one concern. I want a head coach and I want a GM pairing who have some sort of direct connection. For example, Brian Gain and Aaron Glenn were both on the 1998 and 1999 Jets roster together, both Bill Parcells' disciples. So there's a lot to like there between those two. So if I had to make a prediction, I think Brian Gain is the general manager of this team. I think it looks like something, Brian Gain, Mike Greenberg. I think those are the two guys who are ultimately going to be in the Jets' top 2. Maybe Chris Spielman and Lance Newmark. Those are the other 2 guys I could see potentially sneaking onto that list. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Appreciate you all tuning in. Our guy Mike D's Nuts comes in and says, what up all? Great show, Connor. Mike, I appreciate your support and I appreciate you tuning in. Let's see, 54 of you guys watching on YouTube and we only have 37 likes. So a lot of you haven't liked the video yet. Smash the like button. It is completely free. Let's see. Get your final questions in the chat here. We're going to wrap up here shortly. Appreciate you all tuning in here on this kind of pop-up impromptu Saturday stream. If you want to join our Discord, Daily Jets Discussions, the link is in the bio along with our merch store. It'd mean the world to me if you guys could go ahead and check that out. Like I said, get your final comments, questions, super chats in. Last chance to get in on the conversation. If you want to call into the show, click the pinned comment in the chat. I'm seeing if I missed something here. Yeah, Zachary, we broke this down earlier on in the show. So many things we will crop our GM list to 3 this coming week. We broke that down earlier on. I appreciate you tuning in. Taylor says, why not wait until the draft like after we did with JD? That was a complete mess that year after firing McCagnon so late and then bringing Joe Douglas in frickin' June. What a mess that was at the time. I hope that doesn't happen. I want someone in here before the Senior Bowl. I think that's very important as, we're still in January, but the draft process is going to start to heat up. Free agency, it's 2.5 months away. So I want someone in here soon. My concern is we wait until after I'm okay waiting till after the Super Bowl if they want to go ahead and hire Aaron Glenn, but I'm not as head coach, but I'm not waiting till after the Super Bowl to hire a GM. I'm not doing that. I'm okay with it for head coach and not for GM though. Wild Wave says, I want a talent evaluators GM, no cap guys. Are you a fan of Eric Sullivan then? I haven't got your thoughts here on Eric Sullivan. I think Eric Sullivan, again, he's on the younger side too. He's a very intriguing candidate. I'm okay pairing him with a Brian Flores or an Aaron Glenn, not a Jeff Hafley. I think Eric Sullivan and Hafley could be prime for disaster, so I'm not a fan of that duo. Jets Worldwide. Connor, do you think we're sabotaging ourselves by interviewing so many candidates? Snowball, I think it's a great thing that they're casting a wide net, but it's gotten to the point I think they've taken it a step too far. I think that's pretty much safe to say. And I've said it before, if you're going to cast a wide net, that's okay. Interview Mike Locksley, I don't care. But then also interview Super Bowl winning coaches who are available. Why not just speak to Mike McCarthy? It's not that hard. Speak to Mike McCarthy. Speak to Pete Carroll. Speak to John Gruden. You don't have to hire him, but at least get them in the room. There's some sort of value that comes with that. I don't think there's a GM candidate, though, they've interviewed where it's like, wow, you really got to stay away from them, except potentially Grigson, who I know a lot of people aren't fans of. Let's see. Well, do we have like Sullivan? The problem is he has no connections with Glenn unless Glenn isn't the GM. He has no connections with. Oh, unless I don't get the last part of the comment here. The problem is he has no connections with Glenn unless Glenn is the GM. Yeah, the only coaches he's connected to are in Green Bay. So the 2 potential ones are available: Hafley, who's interviewed, and McCarthy, who hasn't interviewed. So McCarthy seems like a pipe dream at this point. I think you're trying to say unless Gain is the GM. I guess that's the only thing I can come up with. I think Gain and Glenn would be a great combo. I said that already on the show. Alan, Brian Flores versus Rich Lamini after a week 1 loss. Fireworks. That would be a mess. That would be a mess. I will say, though, I think Flores has learned from his first stint as a head coach. He did kind of fall down my power rankings for a little after it was reported McCown's not taking an OC job, because that's the one concern. Flores' tenure over in Miami, they had no offensive stability, went through several offensive line coaches, went through several offensive coordinators. If you're going to hire a defensive guy, I want offensive stability. That's what we need. That's what this team needs, something we haven't seen in a decade plus. So offensive stability, we need it. Wildwave, I meant that if Glenn isn't the head coach. Okay, so you would take him as GM unless Glenn isn't the coach. I see what you're saying. Thank you for clarifying. Jared B doesn't want Flores. Flores is pretty much like the pulse of the fan base seems that a lot of people want him, a lot of people don't want him. It's pretty much split on Flores. I think the one positive is he has head coaching experience. That is the one main takeaway, and the one positive I think you could take away from his tenure over in Miami. I appreciate you all tuning in. We're going to wrap up here on this Sunday. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Last chance to gift a membership. Garrett Wilson signed, mini helmet Wankerbet signed, football freedom from our merch store, and a channel emoji among the prizes we are raffling off this month. Remember, the memberships that you gift, those go to the prize pool. So the more memberships you gift, the more exclusive prize tiers, so to speak, we're able to unlock. So you guys are the ones who keep the show going. It means a lot. I think we had our most engaged show last night. I think we had about 80, a lot of 500 views after the fact. We had 60 to 80 of you watching live. It was a great show. We were joined by Justin Fried of the Jet Press. So if you didn't catch it, go back and rewind. It was a 2-hour show, a ton of call-ins, a ton of engagement in the chat. I appreciate you all sticking with me. I appreciate all of your support. Let's see, we need to get the exact subscriber count after today's show. We gained a lot of subscribers after last night's show, so it means a lot to me. We're at 1,374 subscribers. Subscribe if you haven't already. It means that you guys, like I said, you guys are the ones who keep the show going. The goal is 2,000 subscribers by the draft, 3,000 by the start of the season. So we could do it. 2,000 by the draft, 3,000 by the start of the season. It means the world that you guys continue to support the show. If you want to give any suggestions, just throw them, how I can make the show better, just throw them in the chat. Comment on any videos and be sure to see it. You could join our Discord where we have daily Jets discussions. Great stuff over there. I highly recommend you guys check that out. Our merch store is linked in the description below. We have a ton of merch items in there. It would mean a ton if you guys could, go around, look at the store, and hopefully buy some NY Flight Jets Talk apparel. Mean the world to me. I appreciate you all tuning in. I appreciate you all sticking with us. Hopefully next time we'll be on tomorrow. So I don't expect a GM or a head coach to be in here tomorrow, but hopefully when we're doing a show sometime in the middle of the week, there's a GM and a head coach in place before the Senior Bowl. That's the goal. I appreciate you all sticking with us. I am your host, Connor Long, signing off. Yes, Jets, Jets, Jets.